Former Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel slamming the Obama administration. In an interview with Foreign Policy magazine, Hagel said the White House was on a mission to, quote, I'm using his words here, destroy me after being pushed out of office. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Bob Maginnis is with me now. So, Colonel, Hagel says he okayed the plan to strike Damascus in Syria after the Red Line, and President Obama told him to stand down. Does that make sense to you?
Not necessarily, but I'm not surprised, Deirdre. You know, the reality is all the defense secretaries, all four to a certain degree, have acknowledged that there's micromanagement from Susan Rice over the NSC, and that, you know, really the Secretary of Defense didn't have the undivided attention of the President without a bunch of political hacks sitting around the Oval Office. So, you know, Hagel has a gripe here, but he took the job understanding full well that they needed a Republican to kind of round out the administration, and he went over there really to cut, not to do all this complicated stuff that he ended up doing.
Okay, and speaking of which, another source reporting Hagel was dismissed in part due to delays in transferring detainees from Guantanamo Bay, but I think I take your point in the fact that it was not any one specific incident, but really this power struggle between Hagel and Susan Rice.
Yeah, the Gitmo issue is very critical to this administration. Obviously, the president, when he was running for office, promised that he'd close the place. It's not closed right now. And, of course, the announcement that the New York Times that they're going to let 17 more go before long is really whittling down to almost 90 those detainees that are down in Guantanamo. And I think that this is the opportunity they want to just push them into some supermax here in the United States and, you know, be able to check that off the president's list, and they apparently are proceeding in that direction.
Speaking of which, Colonel, this is the president speaking earlier about Guantanamo Bay.
Guantanamo continues to be one of the key magnets for jihadi recruitment. This is part of what they feed, this notion of a gross injustice, that America's not living up to its professed ideals. For us to close it is part of our counterterrorism strategy.
Colonel, good idea or not, and I know it's a big question, to let these 17 that are being discussed now prisoners out?
Yeah, well, certainly the president has used that same mantra over and over again. The reality is that, you know, they aren't using it as a recruiting tool any longer. They don't need to. ISIS certainly doesn't. What we need to be concerned here is after this president is gone and we continue to be engaged in this war against ISIS and other radical Islamists, you know, where are we going to put the people that we capture on the battlefields that inevitably boots on the ground are going to get their hands on? Now, are we going to give them to the likes of Peshmerga, the Kurds in northern Iraq? You know, 2 minutes later, they'll have a hole in their head. The reality is that we need a place that we can take these militants off the battlefield that are trying to kill us and that endanger us in a variety of ways and put them away. Temporarily or permanently, depending upon what we have charged against them. If we bring them here, as the president suggests, yeah, we're going to save some money perhaps, but we're going to create a whole lot of second and third order effects that I don't think Americans want, and we certainly, in long range, are going to have a place to put these type of people.
Yeah, well said indeed. Retired Lieutenant Colonel, thank you for the time. Bob Maginnis with me there.